Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, the John Clayton Academy. As promised, I want to talk about how you win friends and influence them. But really what I want to talk about more specifically is how you build rapport with people at the unconscious level. Rapport, has made a massive difference in my career and to the people I've taught. People are able to influence people in a very positive way. If you're in sales, for example, and you're able to positively influence people, that's extremely powerful. If you're in business and your job is to negotiate with clients, that's really powerful as well. If you're in education and you're teaching children or you're teaching adults, it's a really good idea that you're in rapport with people, because what we're looking for here is that it's when people accept what you're telling them uncritically at the unconscious level, which basically means out of that person's awareness. And I want to talk to you more specifically and more in depth about how we build rapport, but it's going to be unconscious, and that is the major difference. But before we do, let me talk to you more about conscious rapport first, so you then can get a comparison as to what they actually are. So, building rapport consciously is when, you get friends who have things in common. Maybe they've been to the same university, or maybe they follow the same sports team, or maybe they share the same problems. That's conscious rapport, where two people are conscious of one another and that they have things in common. Now, what you find is when you get people like that, when you have friends like that, what you find is that, the relationship is a lot more positive. And when you're talking to one another, you feel a lot more relaxed, and you know that when you're communicating, that the energy between two people is usually very, very positive, or at the very least, they might not agree with you, but they respect what you're telling them. And that's conscious rapport. But really what I want to talk about is unconscious rapport, where that I will build rapport with you, with your unconscious mind, so it's completely out of your awareness. Rapport is simply where two people connect with one another, or a group of people connect with one another. So let me really get into this now, into detail. Before we go into the process, it's really important that you understand the process of communication. Often people think that when we're communicating, it's just kind of two people exchanging words and one person's listening and one person's talking. But in communication, it's a lot more than that. And let me break down and give you an example of what communication really is, because this will really enhance your rapport skills. When we communicate, we know that only 7% of the words we use is actually communication. The tonality, which when we talk with a different tone, is 38%. So that leaves a massive 55% of communication. And what is that? Well, the massive 55% of communication is actually the physiology, the body language, in how we express ourselves. And I'm sure you're conscious of that. So there are three major elements to communication. One is the words we use. The second one is the tonality. And the third one is physiology. But the basic premise of building rapport with people is that when you are like somebody, you like them. So when one person and another person are alike, they like each other. That's the basic premise of rapport. But what we're really looking for here is the process of responsiveness. How does that person in front of you who you're communicating with, how do they respond? So if you're in business or if you're in sales, it's fairly important to you that the client you're talking with is responsive. They're accepting what you're telling them, or they're accepting what you're telling them unconsciously, and that's the major difference. But let me talk to you about the process of unconscious rapport. Rapport is a process of what we call matching and mirroring. And let me give you an example of what that actually means. So when we say matching, what we're doing here is matching a person's body language, or we're matching a person's tonality, or we're matching the words we use. So in other words, if you put your right hand up in the air, if I'm going to match you, I would put my left hand in the air. That's matching body language. Mirroring, however, is slightly different. Mirroring is when, if I put my right hand up again and you put your right hand up, well, that would be mirroring, because that looks like you're looking in a mirror. And there are the differences. But let me talk to you more about the major elements of rapport. So let me talk about physiology. I think that's probably the most important one, certainly for myself. When you are matching and mirroring physiology, what you really want to be doing is, when you're talking to a person, face to face, whether that's in a meeting or an interview, what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to match or mirror a person's posture. How do they sit? If I come and sit down, am I sat at the edge of the chair, or am I sat with my posture like that, listening to you? Or is my posture to the side like that? Now, we want to be looking at the physiology so you can match a person's posture. The other thing you can match and you can mirror is gestures. Now, what I mean by that is that you've probably experienced this yourself as well, where when people talk, they're very expressive, and I'm quite an expressive person when I communicate. So you can match and mirror a person's gesture. Now, it's really, really, really important to understand that when you do this when the other person has stopped doing that. What you do not want to do is match and mirror a person's gesture at the same time. So, for example, if I'm communicating with you and I'm expressing myself and gesturing, you do not want to be doing the same thing at the same time, because that looks completely obvious, and it can also look like you're making fun of them, and I'm sure you'll agree. So what you want to be doing is waiting when the person's finished gesturing, and you can do the same thing, and that would be matching and mirroring a person's gesture. But you really want to be doing this in a very subtle, small, minute way. That's really important that I explain that. So if I'm really expressing myself and I've finished, you don't really want to be doing the same in a very grand way, because again, the person will just know. They'll be wondering what on earth you're doing. So what you want to be doing is gesturing on a smaller scale. So that person has no idea you're matching and mirroring them, and you're building rapport. The other way you can match and mirror a person's physiology is through the facial expressions a person gives off. So you can match and mirror a person's facial gestures. You can also match and mirror, or you can match a person's blinking. Now, matching a person's blinking is totally out of that person's awareness. So when they're blinking, you can blink as well, and you would be matching the blinking. Another one you can also match when with posture is a person's breathing. And I explained this in my last video on observing body language. It's where a person breathes either from the top, from the diaphragm, or from the belly. And then so that's the location. But then you have the tempo, the breathing speed. Well, you can also match a person's breathing and well. So the latter two, the blinking and the breathing, is where it's really unconscious to a person. The other way you can match and mirror a person is through the tone of their voice, the tonality. Now, remember we said before that tonality is about 38% of communication. Now, when you really listen to people, a lot of the time, a person talks in a different tone of voice. So if it's a guy who's got a really kind of, deep voice, you can match a person's tone. If it's a lady, you can also do the same. So you can also match a person over the telephone as well. So if you're in telesales, this is amazing, because what that means is you can build rapport with a person through a telephone. The other one is tempo, with the tonality. A lot of the time people talk quite quickly and they talk really fast and blah 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 blah. But some people talk quite slowly. So what you can do is match the person's speed or the tempo of the voice or how they talk. The other example is the timbre of the voice. Now, let me clarify what timbre means. A lot of people, a lot of the time, really do pronounce their words really, really, sharp and really, really crisp and clear. A lot of people do the opposite. They talk and especially when they're in different locations of the country. I'm from the UK. There's quite a big difference. Somebody talking from the north of England and somebody talking from the south of England. And often what you find is people talk either really crisp or just really casual, and you can actually match that timbre. And then of course, we have the volume, and some people talk really loud, and apparently I talk really loud. Some people talk really quiet. You can match a person's volume when they're talking. The other one you can actually do is the words. Now, remember again, when we talked about communication, the words we use is only 7%. But we can also match a person's words. We can match people's keywords. I'll give you an example. I remember when I was in a meeting with a client, and we was talking away, and I was consulting the person, and he was coming out with words what are really idiosyncratic to himself. They were like personal words were used. Well, I noticed that, and I picked up on that a few times. And during our conversation, sometime afterwards, I used the word he was using maybe a couple of times, but that made a big difference, and I knew that through matching the words or the keywords he was using, I could tell the difference, and I knew that I was building rapport with that person. He was really accepting what I was telling him at the unconscious level. The other one you can really match is common experiences. Now, this is more on a conscious level, as I explained at the beginning of the video. When people share common experiences, etc., etc. And that's more conscious rapport, but you can do that as well.